Earlier this month, we talked about the importance of cultivating compassion for ourselves, because it is the portal through which all love and compassion flows. I shared a profound spiritual experience of self-love in the early days of my meditation practice, and talked about how it brought me peace of mind, and how it changed my perceptions of people I do not know, who exhibit questionable behavior behind the wheel of a car. Compassion, whether it is for the self or other, is a spiritual and emotional discipline that requires ongoing practice in our daily lives. It means withholding judgment, remaining tender, and resisting to climb the ladder of assumptions. In addition to compassion for self and other, there is a form of collective compassion that moves us to effect positive change in the world. Social action is a form of collective compassion that seeks to alleviate and prevent suffering. Collective compassion requires courage and wisdom to know when and how to act effectively. It seeks to dispel the negative stereotypes used to justify violence and oppressive legislation. When I think about collective compassion, there are three instances that come to mind. The first was in 2009 when college students here in Massachusetts organized a pride rally in Harvard Square. Members of the Westboro Baptist Church traveled from Topeka, Kansas to protest the rally. To shield members of the LGBT community from the hate speech and rhetoric coming from the Westboro Church, the students created a wall of love with signs of positive affirmation and songs that sang of human dignity. It was a hot afternoon, and when the Pride activists noticed the Westboro protesters were ill-prepared to withstand the heat, they sent a delegation to the closest market and bought several cases of bottled water and then distributed them to the people from the Westboro Baptist Church. Their vitriol lessened as they recovered from heat exhaustion. And in 2013, the Westboro Baptist Church dissolved, and the president gave a public apology for the pain the organization had inflicted on the LGBTQ community. The second instance that comes to mind when the Standing Rock Sioux, also known as water protectors, protested the construction of the Dakota Access Pipeline in 2016. Local and neighboring law enforcement officials tried to disband the protesters with the use of attack dogs, rubber bullets, and water cannons in freezing cold temperatures. Over the course of 7 months, 10,000 peaceful protesters gathered, undeterred by the force used against them. The prolonged effort to disband the protesters depleted the state's coffers, so the state sent out an appeal to the public for financial support. And the water protectors offered humanitarian aid to the law enforcement officers who had used force against them. They provided sleeping bags, tents, food, water, milk, hand warmers, and cooking fuel. Although I preached about this act of collective compassion when it occurred in 2016, I found it very interesting yesterday to find no evidence of it reported anywhere online. Censorship. is an act of aggression. The third instance of collective compassion that comes to mind is more recent. Some call it Operation Inflation. And it all started when Seth Todd wore an inflatable frog costume in front of an ice facility in Portland, Oregon. He wore the costume to counter the absurd claim by Trump that Portland had become a war zone and needed people in riot gear to restore order. The juxtaposition, there's a photo, and the juxtaposition of the frog standing face to face in front of a line of people dressed in military combat gear is truly absurd. And as ridiculous as the peaceful, elegant woman holding her hands out to be handcuffed by 3 armed officers holding rifles toward her during the Black Lives Matter protest. Or the college student who put a daisy in the barrel of a rifle at a Vietnam protest rally. Remember that one? Frogman started a movement of inflatable costumes at peaceful protests around the country. In fact, the frogs sold out, and people were wearing any kind of inflatable costume they could get their hands on. And there was one organization that was buying them bulk and handing them out at the rallies. And my personal favorites are the Rainbow Unicorn and, forgive me, Alan, Mr. Potato Head. I mean, I just have visions of me coloring a clergy collar on Mr. Potato Head and attending a rally. Why are these acts of collective compassion so successful in disrupting the false narratives of their respective movements? Compassionate acts catalyze a chain reaction of kindness that spreads from person to person. And it's as powerful as hatred. Kindness is as powerful as hatred. It's difficult to see members of the LGBT community as menacing perverts when they are handing you a bottle of water to prevent you from going to the ER. Acts of compassion humanize the other. And similarly, despite how they were treated, the water protectors did not wish to see other human beings suffer simply because they were doing their jobs or following orders. Humanizing the other is the primary purpose of social action. And I think if we wear that lens when we hear the vitriol, it gives us an alternative strategy for us to see each other's humanity. The humor of inflatable costumes at protest rallies provides a bridge across the rhetoric that incites anger and violence. It invites us to experience our common humanity through laughter. And I didn't see the dinosaur, and I'm told she didn't try to walk, but I have a great nephew who wore a whale costume once at Halloween, and it was a frickin' riot. I mean, you could not keep a straight face. You know, he was just waddling across the parking lot. Humor can neutralize anger and fear, good and healthy humor. And it can help us see each other in a different light. People resort to violence when they are fearful or feel threatened. And right now, the apex of power long held by white, educated, wealthy, heteronormative Protestant males, otherwise known as the matrix of domination, a phrase coined by Patricia Hill Collins in her book called Black Feminist Thought, feels threatened by the gains of women's rights, marriage equality, gender diversity, and the anti-racism, anti-oppression movement. Predictions that we will become the largest Spanish-speaking company by 2050 doesn't help either. When the Dalai Lama asked a Tibetan monk if he ever felt he was in danger while being mistreated in prison, the monk replied, "Yes, many times. I was in danger of losing my compassion for my jailers." Buddhists believe hatred is a more significant threat than physical danger. And the Buddha tells us, holding on to anger or hatred is like drinking poison and expecting the other person to die. So Rosemary Watola Trommer invites us to love relentlessly until relentless love becomes the basic building block behind every action. Anger makes the body clench. Fear invokes cowering, shrinking, and shock. But love spreads through the body like an ocean wave. It doesn't erase anger and fear. It seeds itself somehow inside it. So even as I contract, love bids me to open until fear is not all I feel. Love relentlessly. Even when we say those words, it invites us to both soften. Even saying those words invites both softness and ferocity in the chest, making the heart throb simultaneously with a sense of urgency and willingness. A rebellion of generous, tenacious love that infuses every step with an uprising, upwelling tide of hope. May it be so.